Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the 50th anniversary celebration of the Council of Black Faculty and Staff. This is a video tribute where you will hear voices from the past, from the present, as we look to the future of this outstanding organization that was birthed in advocacy and representation. Not just for Black faculty and staff and students, but for everybody. For all of those who felt marginalized or who needed a voice, it was the Council of Black Faculty and Staff who was there at the beginning. So as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Stockton, we're also aligned with this 50th anniversary of the Council. So what I want you to do is I want you to just sit back and relax, and let's take a trip down Stockton memory lane, because some of the voices and faces you'll see, we're taking you back. And we're going to just reflect on where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed. And I know that we're going to be headed to another 50 years, building on the tradition and the legacy of those who came before. So thank you very much for being here. Sit back and let's take this trip back down Osprey Memory Lane. Thank you.
The roots of the council, which was really, there were a couple reasons for it. And number one was for advocacy purposes, to ensure that the institution was committed to, and this was, just at the beginning of really the concept of affirmative action, but committed to being an inclusive environment. And to make sure that we were. And by that I meant, the administration were open to recruiting minorities throughout the population. People like Franklin Smith was among the very first faculty members, Lee Hoxter. I mean, I could go through the entire list of African-American faculty who made an incredible impact on me.
The university has never been able to move beyond sort of like lip service in regards to the need to increase Black faculty. It's only when you have a strong advocate located in a certain place where the push is unrelenting that you begin to see some action or activity. That was precisely what Henry Bass did. When Henry Bass joined that board, he said, this is going to happen. And so it was this constant pressure at the time. 1970, when it started, 73, 74, this is where we were. Every Black professional had some level of consciousness about the need to increase Black participation at whatever institutions you were at, whatever organizations you were a part of. And one of the great things about that period was that there was a movement on the ground, meaning that you had all kinds of support outside of your institution because people were in the streets protesting. We're talking about coming out of the civil rights movement, being at the real peak of the Black Power movement. You really had courage to go out and say things and do things and to organize.
I think we recognize that our pursuit of our profession in the institution needed assistance from policymakers, policy determiners, who in many cases there needed to be a more equitable distribution of resources, ideas, thoughts, cultures, so forth and so on, to broaden the whole base. So the African American population of staff is particularly larger in size than with Hispanic, and you have very few Asians, and I don't even recall if we had a Native American on staff.
It was the voice, many times, of the African American community at Stockton. It was critically important for the concept of empowerment. It was always important in the area of fundraising for student scholarships and things of that nature. And it was a place where everyone could feel a sense of camaraderie. And I'm talking about white, Black, brown, whomever. I remember so many of even the dances that were held. and I guess it began in Pat started it in 1981, which is the 40th anniversary of the dinner, the council dinner, which was, a major event at the institution. You had our gala and you had the council dinner. So the council has been around Stockton since there's been a Stockton.
One of the things that I appreciate about the council, Black faculty staff, is its commitment to, raising money and establishing an endowment that really has helped to remove those, financial barriers that some of our students experience. Many of those students are already disenfranchised, financially or in some way or another. So by being able to provide those opportunities is a burden that's lifted off of their shoulders as a result of the financial commitment that the council has been able to make to so many students over the years. It's allowed students to be able to stay here, to be retained, and for them to ultimately, graduate with a first-class education and college degree from Stockton.
The council, in its origin, was so much more than an annual dinner. The dinner didn't come along for like a decade after the founding of the council. It wasn't about that. The council was about making sure that Black faculty and staff were seen and heard, making sure that their evaluations were fair, making sure that if they were coming up against brick walls, that they had people who had their back. And so that's really what it was all about. The dinner, of course, is important because that became a part of raising funds for Black and Brown students for scholarships. But it was about much more than that, and even advocating for Black and Brown students too. That was a part of it. In terms of those students would come to us if they have issues, and then we would advocate for them.
I think the impact of the council has been a good guardian that ensures that the university is addressing hiring, retention, and recruitment of individuals that allow the institution to provide staff, faculty, and more importantly, students that is more reflective of society in general, or should I say, the New Jersey community per se.
I owe where I am, to Stockton. That's what got me started. And I want to say that when I had marine biology professors, I would hear them complain, and this is back then, I don't know about now, about the salary and how they didn't feel like they were paid what they were worth. And that did have a little effect on me in terms of not wanting to be a college professor, but here I am. And I won't go through that. That's another story. But I did it because that's what I really enjoy doing. And just coming back as a product of Stockton, as a professor, just made me proud. And to show, too, the professors that, like you said, that cultured us and nurtured us, and for them to see, what I was able to do with my life and give back in a way that others need to see an African American male as a marine biologist, even though I might not have needed it, just to give back in a way that others behind me that came after me need to see. And again, it being owed to Stockton because of that, because that's where I started off. That gave me my beginning.
A lot of people have heard me term this the year of the invasion, but it was when the Black faculty pretty much doubled in number because of Henry Bass and his stating that he wanted to see affirmative action. He didn't just want to hear about it, he wanted to see some results from it. So we pretty much doubled the number of Black faculty at that time. There was one year, and this is where the council comes in, because Franklin was the president at that time, and I believe I was the vice president. And he charged me as a faculty member, and I was a junior faculty member, getting ready for tenure, to come up with a proposal and try to get the certificate study done within a year. And that was my charge.
One of the things I realized early was that given the fact that I was in a place where I was in unfamiliar territory, I naturally found myself gravitating towards, the mentorship and the guidance of some of the Black faculty and staff who were on campus. And what I noticed was that their interest in me was mutual. They had a vested interest in our success. It was like a family setting. I tell people a lot that I felt like I had an HBCU experience within Stockton because it was that tight knit.
You don't really understand or sometimes appreciate how people view the work that you do, right? And so, we're all a sum of our parts. And so, when I was working in public health, I was very proud of that work. But I think the things that made me more proud when, you have to submit your biography, right, for that event, was really looking at the ways that I worked with my community where I live, right? And so it was the tools from Stockton that allowed me to do that. But just being recognized for that, right? Because, careers are careers, and hopefully you can impact lives, and hopefully I've done that. But just to be able to, the institution that I have such a heart for, to say, hey, we see you, we see the contribution that you're making, and we celebrate that. It was humbling, it was emotional.
If you could just have something that you would say to Vera, what would you say to her? What would you say to her right now?
I would say thank you. Thank you for leading the way and opening the door. She was really ahead of her time. And not everyone always understood or appreciated her brilliance or her approach to her work. But there was a method to her madness, so to speak. And she was uniquely qualified to lead this institution at that time. And because of her, we are who we are now at Stockton. She was here for 20 years as president. And, this institution was incredibly important to her. She put, her life, her sweat, her tears, everything into Stockton. And if not for her, I certainly would not be here at Stockton, and we would not be positioned as the institution that we are if not for her.
I would say thank you. Thank you for seeing in me what I didn't see in myself. It's funny, I always tell students I see struggling, I didn't learn to read till the third grade. I had some learning challenges, and I hated to read when I came to college. And I remember taking Linda Nelson's African American Lit course. And, I'm biracial. I identify as African American, but I am biracial. And so just having the experience to be able to talk about that in a space that was safe and exploring literature. I'm an avid reader today because of that experience. So she tapped something in me that was not tapped before.
I think one of our most important missions must remain to be building relationships on an internal and external basis with our faculty, staff, our students, but also our community. And I think it's very important as well. As I mentioned earlier, we host this annual fundraiser event, which provides scholarships to well-deserving Stockton University students at the undergraduate, graduate, and now doctoral level. But I think it's very important that when we're asking those individuals to donate towards scholarships, I think we have to constantly be in the friend building and friend raising mode before we can ask individuals to make donations to scholarships, even though the cause is very worthy.
50 years is not that long when you compare this university, the history of other larger institutions. So that means that the possibilities are endless. The fact that we have a council for 50 years for Black faculty and staff is tremendous, and it'll continue to grow. But Now Unidos has come into existence, out of a need for advocating for the Latinx community here on campus. We have the Asian community that is creating their own advocacy group. And I know there's been some talks for the Italian, alliance. And there's so many different cultures and ethnicities that are trying to get together, but also work collaboratively to provide one home base and one welcoming space for our entire student body, our faculty, our staff, and the community. I mean, we got to really represent and serve the community that we are in.
Although we come from different backgrounds, there's something about the Stockton story that is so familiar. Coming from the place of the backgrounds and coming from our lived experience, there's a familiarity that there have been people that touched us, people who mentored us, people who put such an impression on us that we'll never forget, and the compulsion to give back and to be what was given to us. So I learned that the work goes on. I'm just an extension of it. But I also have a responsibility to bring on the next person and to hand the work to them as the work was handed to us.
One of the council's, one of its primary responsibility is to hold us accountable. I mean, us being the administration, mine and future ones, accountable, okay, to fulfill what we put into place last July, that Board of Trustees resolution and the different things that it said that we would be committed to. We were one of the few, if only, colleges, certainly in New Jersey and among in the United States, that said, no, we are going to formally resolve that these are the issues that are important to us and this is how we're going to go forward. But that cannot be done without a strong council. It cannot be. And that's been the case from the beginning. Most of the major advances, including the hiring of Dr. Vera King Farris, okay, was as a result of the council and its role with our Board of Trustees and things of that nature.
To know the past, have lived in the present, and to be here now and watch where Stockton is going with people of color, people who are members of the Council of Black Faculty and Staff, and we still are advocacy, and our advocacy has changed, broadened, and grown. Child, I'm excited. But we always need to remind ourselves that the problems and the questions don't go away. Now they may change, but we're still dealing with the same issues. We're still dealing with issues of racism. We're still dealing with the same problems of caste. But is that a reason to stop? Is that a reason to be discouraged? Absolutely not. My challenge is that we continue to carry the torch with hope, with faith, with excitement, with enthusiasm, and with passion. And my hope is you and our leaders in the Council of Black Faculty and Staff, as we continue on with this partnership with administration, staff, faculty, and students, that we get even bolder, that we even make more contributions, and that we grow higher and higher and higher. I feel like saying amen.